Well, good morning, friends. It is Crystal here from Homemaking on the Homestead. And in today's video, I am going to be sharing with you freezer cooking, batch cooking, meal starters, recipe ideas, all with hamburger. I'm hoping to inspire you and help you save money, save time, and stock up your freezer for the future. Okay, so in today's video, I am going to be sharing with you things that I have recently been doing to batch cook hamburger. I am going to also be sharing with you, though, things that I have done in the past. I went into my blog and my website and I pulled out stuff that I have done in the past because over the years, especially raising 8 kids, I did lots of freezer cooking, lots of batch cooking. And so I'm going to be sharing a whole bunch of ideas with you. Batch cooking and freezer cooking will save you a lot of time. It will allow you to take the time you're already in the kitchen, expand it by maybe just a little bit, and end up with a lot of extra food that you could be putting into your freezer for another day. This can also save you money because not only can you take advantage of sales, like on hamburger, let's say, because that's what today's video is focused on, but it will also allow you to put some convenience foods in your freezer, things that are easy to grab and throw together for a meal so that you do not feel tempted to do some takeout or convenience foods. I do buy things like fish sticks and chicken tenders and French fries so that I can have them in my freezer on those occasions when I just need something quick. But it is so much cheaper and so much easier if you've already got your own foods in there ready to go. And I have taken advantage of that many, many times. So I'm going to get started with, first off, with what I call a hamburger mix. It is a meal starter. What I mean by meal starter is that you cook up a bunch of hamburger, in this case, could be anything, and then you can season it and have it all ready to go in individual Ziploc bags so that when you are ready for dinner, all you have to do is pull that out, let it defrost, and then you can whip up any number of recipes with that. Okay, the hamburger mix. In the recipe below in the description box, it does not have beans in it, but quite often I would and will add beans to my hamburger just to stretch it out farther. So whether you follow the mix or you follow what you're going to see in these pictures, it's totally up to you. It's pretty simple. I start with my basic ingredients, which can really be anywhere to 4 to 7 pounds of hamburger, just depending on what you want and what you have to use. You will also need 2 cans of beans if that's what you decide to do. To make it the way that I have it here, a large pepper, whether green or red, a large onion, a can of tomato sauce, and a can of diced tomatoes. You're going to cook up your hamburger with all of those vegetables. You're going to add the tomato sauce and the diced tomatoes to that. You're going to drain and rinse the beans, and you're going to add that. You're going to let this simmer for a few 10-15 minutes just so that all those flavors get combined, and then you're going to divide that into 5 Ziploc bags if you were to follow this specific recipe. If you do more hamburger, add more beans. Basically your rule of thumb is you're going to add 2.5 cups of your mix into Ziploc bags. 2.5 cups is going to equal approximately 1 pound. So if you have a recipe calling for 1 pound of hamburger, there you go. You pull out one of your hamburger mixes and you're ready to go. So if you're wondering, well, what kind of recipes can I make with this? Let me tell you, the list is endless. You can obviously make chili. You can make chili mac by adding macaroni to it. You can make it into taco meat. You could create a taco dinner, or you can do taco salads. You can do taco soup. You can easily use this to make spaghetti sauce, to make, which then can be just for spaghetti itself, or you can make it into lasagna. Any kind of casserole that would call for hamburger, it works perfect. And really that just skims the surface just to get your creative mind going and what kind of options that you might have. Now the first thing that I want to show you is what I did with 6.5 pounds of hamburger that I bought a couple weeks ago from Costco, and how I divided that up and what did I make with that. I began by dividing that up into a bowl that had 3 pounds in it, because I was going to be making, cooking the meat up with the extra vegetables and things so that I could have spaghetti sauce. In the other bowl, I put 2 pounds so that I could make meatloaf with that. And in the last one, I had 1.5 pounds, and I was going to use that for taco meat. So I started by making my meatloaf. I don't have a specific meatloaf recipe to share with you. I just kind of usually wing it. I added my seasonings. I do add crackers. I know a lot of people like to use breadcrumbs or oatmeal, but do whatever works for you. I added some barbecue sauce for that, just to give it a little extra moisture. 1 egg per pound of meat is usually my rough estimate. And I mixed that all together. So I was going to be putting this in the freezer, and I went ahead and just lined my pan, my bread pan, with foil, and I put my hamburger meatloaf mixture into that foil pan. Now, if you don't want to dedicate a bread pan that sits in the freezer, the other thing you can do is, after it has frozen, just lift it out of the bread pan, make sure it's tightly wrapped, and stick it back into the freezer. This is a great way to be able to know that you can pull it right out of the oven frozen, pop it into that pan, put it in the oven, and you're good to go. Now I'm going to show you what I have done with meatloaf mixture in the past, besides just making a meatloaf. This one I believe I shared on another video, and I had about 5 pounds of hamburger there that I just turned into 1 big pan of meatloaf mixture, and I turned it into meatballs. And I had probably, I don't know, at least 5 dozen, maybe more meatballs. It made a lot. And I went ahead and just cooked all those ahead of time, and then I put them on a tray to flash freeze them. And then when it was done, I was able to put them back into my freezer bags and put them out and put them back in the freezer. The great thing about these is that now they are just there waiting for you. So they in effect are kind of like a meal starter. So you can make spaghetti and meatballs, you can make meatball soup, you can make meatball casseroles, you can make meatball sub sandwiches. One of my favorite is a broccoli meatball soup, and I think I even have that on one of my way back early videos. I'll have to look and see. Anyway, there are so many things that you can do with it. You can do meatballs with barbecue sauce, which goes great with rice or with noodles. The possibilities are endless, and if you know that you have these already cooked in the freezer, what a great way to utilize that and have some convenience foods. Another one that I want to share with you is that you can cook meatloaf in a crock pot. So, of course, you have your choice. You can take your meatloaf mixture, like I have in this here, and divide it between, this one was making 2, and I divided that between 2 pans and put those in the freezer. However, if you want to cook this in a crock pot, here is a nifty trick. Line your crock pot with saran wrap, put your meatloaf in there and shape it and form it so it fits into the crock pot. Then you pull that out, wrap that saran wrap around that really good, put that into a Ziploc bag and put it in your freezer. Because now when you want to make that meatloaf, you pull that out, take the saran wrap off, put it in the crock pot, put the lid on, put it on low, and in 6 or 7 hours you have meatloaf. It's a great way to do it. And again, it doesn't take up any bread pans, and it doesn't take up a whole lot of space in your freezer either. With the 3 pounds of hamburger that I had, my intention was to turn that into cooked hamburger that was ready to be made into spaghetti sauce. And I was planning to make a very large pot of spaghetti sauce. So I cooked up all my hamburger. I added extra onions to that. I also added some mushrooms and carrots because I like to add extra veggies when I'm making spaghetti sauce. They cook down, nobody really knows they're there, and they add a lot of bulk to the sauce, and they add a lot of flavor. I also did some seasoning with some garlic and some salt. I was going to wait on the Italian seasoning until I was actually making the sauce because my canned spaghetti sauce has Italian seasoning, so I didn't want to overdo it. I cooked that all up, and then a few days later I made the big pot of sauce. So I made it in my 6-quart pot, so I had about 5 quarts of spaghetti sauce there. And the first thing I did was to make lasagna for my daughter. I did this shortly after she had had her baby. And I had enough sauce there to make her a very large 11 by 15 pan of lasagna. Lasagna is super easy to make, and it is a great one to have in the freezer. Hers went right into the oven, but if you want to make them for the freezer, they are very easy. You can just make them in your pans and put those in the freezer, or you can do like I mentioned with the meatloaf. Line your pans with foil, make your lasagna, put them in there. Once it's frozen, you can take them out of your pans and just stack them up in your freezer. And then when you want them, they're easy to just pop back into the pan and put in the oven. I have also used aluminum pans to make big batches of lasagna, and I have also used I would buy 9x13 pans at garage sales and thrift stores and things like that and get them for almost next to nothing. And then I was able to utilize those and put them in the freezer and not really worry about whether or not they were going to be needed. I would always line them with foil because some of those old used pans are just kind of sketchy on the inside. So anyway, and then I would always have a good stack of lasagna. And when my kids were at home, I would do 5 or 6 of those at a time, because once you have all that sauce made, it's just pretty much an operation after that to just put it all together and get it in the freezer. With the last 1.5 pounds of hamburger, I was making taco meat with it. After I cooked it up with some onions, I also opened a quart jar of home canned pinto beans, which would be approximately 2 cans if you were going to do this. After the meat had been cooked, I drained the pinto beans, rinsed those off really well, added those into my pot along with my taco seasoning and a little bit of salsa. When that was done, I just spooned it into a pan so that it could just sit and cool. Once it had cooled down, I put it into a Ziploc bag. So at that point in that day, I had a bag full of meat for the spaghetti sauce and another bag full of taco meat. And then the last one that I want to share with you that you can do with taco meat is to make either burritos or enchiladas. I used to do these, again, big quantities, and really, even though there's only 2 of us, that is something that I still do today because it's so nice to have these in the freezer. In fact, I'm kind of working on that right now here. Haven't got it quite going, but is to put the mix into either you can do flour tortillas if you're doing burritos with a little bit of cheese, wrap that up, lay it on a tray, and then those can all be frozen individually. Once they're frozen, then you can put them into a Ziploc bag and put those in the freezer so that you can just pull out what you need. The other one that I would do are these enchiladas, and I would usually use corn tortillas, and I would take my mix, put a little bit in the center with a little bit of cheese, roll those up, and then I would lay them out on a tray, and did that until I had no more mix left. And once that was done, again, pop them in the freezer. And I used to make a lot of those. I would line up all my trays with those enchiladas and then put them in the freezer. Once again, flash freezing. When they're done freezing, you put them into the Ziploc bags. Now you can pull them out, lay them out like in a 9x13 pan. Pour your favorite enchilada sauce over the top, a little cheese, and pop those in the oven, and you have a really fast, really easy dinner. Alright, you guys, I hope today's video compilation of what you can do with hamburger, how you can batch cook, meal start, freezer cook, all those great things with hamburger and save money, save time, and still feed your family some delicious meals. And as always, don't forget to give this video a like, a thumbs up if you enjoyed this and found it to be helpful. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you like my content, would you consider subscribing? I would really appreciate that. Okay, guys. Oh, and in the comments, make sure you leave me things that you do for freezer cooking with hamburger. Do you do other things than what I did? Do you do the same things that I do? What are some of your favorite recipes? Okay, I hope you guys have an awesome and blessed day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.